Wonderful West Virginia. It's more than a slogan, it's a magazine. Thousands of readers wait by their mailboxes each month for the newest issue of what some people say is our state's best showcase. Wonderful West Virginia magazine, today on your DNR. Hello and welcome to your DNR. I'm Hoy Murphy. Wonderful West Virginia magazine has been published for more than a quarter of a century, and its history goes back even farther. For its readers, Wonderful West Virginia is a monthly reminder of what a great state West Virginia is. It takes special people to bring that kind of quality to us each month, and I have a couple of them here with me today. First, there's Arnout Hyde Jr., who's the editor and chief photographer of the magazine. And also we have Steve Shaluta, the tourism photographer for the State Bureau of Commerce, and he's a frequent contributor to the magazine. Thank you for both for being here today. Arnout, I'll start with you. We look at the magazine, how it looks today. It's a lot different than it was just even a couple of years ago. And a lot of readers were surprised at first of all, that you were the magazine editor again after you had retired previously, and also at the complete redesign of the magazine. So let's just start with some of the history of the magazine. I said it goes back a quarter of a century, but it really goes back beyond that.
Okay, what happened, the magazine, being a DNR publication, was called Outdoor West Virginia. It was a small publication, and Ed Johnson came over. I worked for the same Department of Commerce, and Ed came over one day and he said, "How would you like to help me enlarge a magazine?" And sounds like a great deal. And so the first job I did on it, we went to Youth Day, and I don't know how many are familiar with Youth Day, but that's where we have quite a few hundreds of children, and it was at Holly River State Park. And so I arrived there. They woke me up at 3:30, and we cooked 3,000 pieces of chicken in a pouring rain for these children. And then when the function was over, everybody evaporated and went home and forgot to take me home. I didn't have a vehicle, so I had to thumb home, and which took most of the day. I fortunately got a ride with a Vista worker, and those were the days there weren't interstates. So that was my first experience with DNR. And I went back to the Department of Commerce and said, you know, I sort of would like my old job back, but Ed, being a convincing editor, talked me into staying, and from then on it was all uphill. So we expanded the magazine, and it was in the early days of state magazines, and of course the granddaddy of all state magazines was Arizona Highways. So we sort of patterned the magazine after Arizona Highways, which incidentally ran very few stories, but primarily scenic photographs. And through Ed's leadership as an editor, the magazine became very successful. And in fact, within a few years, it rose to the second highest monthly circulation magazine in the United States. Either the second or third. In Arizona, of course, has always been the first, and Texas second. And then as the magazine progressed, Ed retired in I think it was 1982, and then I assumed the editorship. And then I had the great fortune of I got these great photographs from some guy up in Grafton. I said, wow, these things are really good. They're head and shoulders above all the other photographs that we get. And we literally got hundreds of photographs. So eventually that turned out to be Steve Shaluta. And our good fortune, he was a railroad engineer, which he'll tell about. He gave up driving a train down the tracks and came to work with the tourism department. And Steve has been probably our most important contributor as far as the photographs. And you see his photographs time and again in the magazine, and I feel that he's truly made it one of the real contributing factors of making it a success. And
So you went from a small black and white magazine to a larger full color version, and of course then the popularity took off. Magazine articles about history and scenic sites of West Virginia, things to do, and it became more than just a wildlife magazine.
Right. It was always thought, Ed Johnson, former editor, always felt that we could increase circulation if we went outside of just wildlife articles, and this was a thinking, and which did prove to be successful. Although I do believe that the basis of the wildlife is still the important aspect of the magazine, but it sort of became unofficially or the state publication, and it's continued to today the same way.
Now, it became officially was named Wonderful West Virginia in 1980.
I believe Wonderful West Virginia, 1969.
69. Okay,
69,
that far back. Okay,
right.
25 years, 28 years ago, something
Yeah.
like that. And you became the editor after Ed Johnson, and then you retired.
Right. I took the early retirement in 1989 with the stipulation that I would never work with the state again. And when Nancy Clark retired, and I heard the governor give a speech that he wanted to privatize parts of state government, I sent a proposal to DNR and the governor, never dreaming in a million years that they would accept it, and they did. Fortunately for myself, because it's certainly been a rewarding challenge to come back and do it. And it's been real interesting, because when I left the magazine, I had a staff with DNR, and we were called at that time paste pot editors. In other words, we took the stories and we had a galley, and we cut them up and we pasted them down with rubber cement. And you know, this rubber cement probably is not the best thing to breathe, but at the end of the day, you'd be feeling pretty good from this rubber cement. The magazine would look a little better, and then the next morning you'd say, wow, did I do this? But anyway, we were paste pot editors, so, and when I left, that was it. Then when I came back, the computer had been invented. It was like coming back and the automobile had been invented. And I knew very little about computers, so, and incidentally, my lovely wife and I are in this together, so to speak, of course with DNR, and we quickly bought a computer, which I have no idea what it was at that time. Somebody said buy a Mac, which we did, and we're quickly trying to learn the computer business, because all the design work is done on the computer. The Corken Express is the system that you use.
So, okay, you became editor when Ed Johnson retired, pretty much reinvented the magazine, and then you retired. Nancy Clark came on as editor and continued it for several years, and then you came back under a private contract and had to start all over again because of the computers.
Right,
okay.
Right. And
it's, the redesign is just unbelievable. It's so many effects that you use each month and just highlight the state of West Virginia's beauty. It's just amazing. If you haven't seen the magazine in the past couple of years, you'll just be surprised and amazed at what the difference is. Steve, let's move over to you now. You're a frequent contributor. Your photographs are some of the most popular parts of the magazine, of course. Give us some of your background. Now, you used to be a train engineer and moved to photography?
Yes, I grew up in Grafton. That's my hometown, and I was actually an engineer for 14 and a half years, so, which I enjoyed very much. But I became interested in photography through a person I met on a train accident. I derailed a passenger train on what is now the North Bend Rail Trail. It was called the Branch on the B&O system. And there was a young lady I met there who was a photographer, and we got to talking, and she got me interested in photography, and it took off from there. And I sent a few images, excuse me, to Ed Johnson when Ed was still editor, and he used 2 images. But I had just begun. I mean, they weren't very good images. And then when Arnout became the editor, I sent him a submittal, which he's already described, and I received a phone call, not a letter, but a phone call from him saying how he really enjoyed them and wanted me to send more. So I became pretty serious about photography then. And an opportunity came up for me to sell my seniority with the railroad and take photography as a full-time career. And at the time I did that, I didn't have a job. I was just going to do freelance. But 2 months later, I fell into this position with the Division of Tourism, and it's really worked out very well for me. I mean, I've been here going on 13 years now. It's a wonderful job. I mean, it's like being on vacation all the time for me.
So you've had two completely different careers in your lifetime, and you're just a young guy.
Yes, completely. Well, I thank you for saying I'm a young guy.
So tell me about working for the magazine now. Your main job is with the Division of Bureau of Commerce, shooting tourism photographs.
Sure.
But how did you get involved with the magazine?
Well, of course, I submitted freelance work for several years, and that's how Arnout Hyde and Gerald Ratliff, and former photographer, knew me and knew my work. And they encouraged me, and it was because of their encouragement that I decided that I was good enough that I could do this professionally. And so when I came on board with the Division of Tourism, it was just kind of a natural flow for them to use my work. We have a library of slides which we shoot for tourism, anything that deals with tourism, and that intermingles with articles for Wonderful West Virginia magazine, so we can overlap shoots for tourism and for the magazine.
So that works out for both, because you know in advance what you're looking for, and you can go out and get it.
Sure. It really works out very, very well. It's a smooth transition, and we get photos that we can use for our files, and other magazines and newspapers and such use our files for promoting West Virginia. And in addition, it helps me as a creative person because I have specific assignments, and then I can go use my creativity for these assignments to come up with the best possible photos to tell a story.
So you spend most of your time on the road, I take it then, just
Quite
shooting.
a bit on the road, and we process all of our own film, and we mount the film. We caption it. Captioning is a big part, and it's all computerized. I've been working with computers now for about 8 or 9 years, so I'm a little more familiar with them than Arnout Hyde, and there's a lot of work to be done nowadays with computers.
Well, we're going to take a little break right now, and when we come back, you've brought some photography equipment that maybe you can show us and explain to us why it looks like a Martian invasion coming in here on a tripod, and some of the special effects you get in the magazine with some of your wonderful photographs. We'll be back in just a moment.
I'm the boss around here, and don't you forget it. All I ask is 110%.
The next time you need to get away, you only have to go as far as a West Virginia state park.
What do you think this is? A country club?
You'll feel you're a million miles away, even though you're close to home.
Where is everybody?
Welcome back to Your DNR. I'm Hoy Murphy. With me today is Arnout Hyde and Steve Shaluta. We're talking about Wonderful West Virginia magazine, and we should tell you that the magazine is available by subscription, $15 for 12 issues, and you can get that by calling 1-800-CALL-WVA. It's also available on most newsstands and state parks, and just about anywhere that has an interest in West Virginia, you can find this magazine. Let's talk about some of your special equipment here now. This is a big camera here. What do you use that one for?
Boy,
It's got the hood and everything.
The camera probably dates me maybe as an antiquated photographer, but when I started out, you didn't get the good reproductions from the smaller 35 millimeters that you do today. So I used a 4x5, which was, when I combined all the lenses and the holders, you were carrying 35 pounds of equipment. So it was a little bit more difficult getting some of this equipment in places that you guys are lucky now. So now that the 35s are being used, that's another thing. I'm trying to learn how to use all this automated equipment. Here we guessed a lot of exposures and all, but this particular camera is what I started with. It made a 4x5 negative, and you got excellent reproductions from that large negative in the old days, but today it's hard to tell the difference. So it's sort of semi-retired. But the only advantage now of a camera like this, it has a thing called swings and tilts. It can straighten buildings up. If you look up at a building, it looks like it's going to lean over. This, by adjusting the lenses and the film back, straightens it up. So it's good in some of the architectural shots and all that we do.
So how old is this camera?
It's probably 30 years old.
And you still use it occasionally?
Yeah. I still do it for some of the architectural shots. In fact, there was one shot here that I did that it was a
Oh, that's a beautiful shot.
a night shot or an evening shot. If I had shot this with a normal camera, since it's a pretty wide-angle lens, the memorial would have been tilted backwards. So I tilted that, and this is through several exposures. At one exposure I took a little earlier, and then I took one later, and put light on the memorial. In other words, it would have come pretty dark.
That's the Veterans Memorial here at the Capitol.
Yes,
That's a beautiful shot. All right, Steve, you got a little bit more modern equipment over here. You want to talk some about that? One of them looks like a Canon. It's a
Well,
long barrel on
actually
it.
is a Canon. It's a Canon name brand.
But it doesn't shoot.
Well,
It looks like
yes,
it might. It does shoot, doesn't it?
But yes, this is more modern, much more modern. With the state, we use Canon equipment, the Canon brand name. My personal equipment is Nikon. But this is a 100 to 300 zoom lens, and it's what I photograph like wildlife and whitewater rafting, and I use it quite a bit even for scenery. But it's, the lens itself is rather heavy, but the camera body is lightweight. The 35 millimeter film is wonderful, very sharp. It has a motor drive. It's automated. I know how to use everything on manual, but nowadays I can adjust the automation to fit my needs, and I generally carry this camera and this one, and that's what I carry most of the time, and maybe one other lens in a photo vest. I always wear a photo vest to carry my film, and this is what I'll hike with. This is basically it. And all this together probably doesn't weigh maybe any more than 10 pounds. And I have ranges from wide angle from 28 millimeter to here up to 300 millimeter to here.
Does camera technology change every year? You have to keep updating?
You really don't have to keep updating, but it does change frequently. And I try to keep abreast of what's going on for my needs, because a lot of my needs in shooting tourism, a lot of action where a motor drive comes in handy. Filtration, I experiment with a lot of filters and film, and I really try to keep update what's going on in the camera world, and digital as well as digital and computerized, because that's just the way of the future.
We talked about computers. You're going to have to start doing more of the digital photography, I guess.
Actually, we are not doing digital photography, but we're scanning the actual slides in and then working with the computer to correct a few things. Maybe you would have a telephone pole growing out of someone's head, or maybe some litter in a photo that you didn't see, and you can take that out quite easily.
Oh, okay, that's great.
And so I've been doing that, and just recently I've been doing panoramas, taking 5 shots with a 35 millimeter, lining them up, and then I put them together on the computer. And so I have one long panorama shot. And so we're just experimenting with that right now to see how that works, and maybe hopefully seeing some of that in the magazine in the future.
Well, your photographs, and Dave Fatellis, who also works in the tourism photography office, they're just beautiful, along with Arnout's photographs. I just wish you could see this. If you don't get this magazine monthly, you really ought to, just for your own pride in the state of West Virginia, things that you'd never see otherwise, probably. Arnout, talk to me a little bit about the printing process of the magazine now. This is printed on slick recycled paper.
Right. Years ago, it was sort of a trademark that we printed on this was a matte paper that we used, and we used it for many years. And
Matte means it's kind of a dull finish.
it's a pebbly effect. Although it's a very nice paper, it doesn't print as well because inks are absorbed into the matte paper. But the reason that it was changed, the mills no longer make the matte paper, only under special order, and it would just be extremely expensive to print on it. And some subscribers hated to see us go away from that, but there was no choice. But we have it on a very high quality gloss paper. And we're very fortunate. We work with Chapman Printing, and they're wonderful people to work with. And we're very involved working directly with them through all the steps. Actually, we spend 1 day or 2 days a month in Parkersburg looking at all the whole magazine on a monitor and making adjustments in color balances and so on in each picture. So it's really very much a cooperative effort that we do. And then about every 3 months we go to the bindery, and as I say, and then we work with the Charleston office on a lot of the pre-press work. So a lot of my time is involved working directly with the printer, and that's why I feel that we get one of the reasons that we get a very excellent printing job.
And despite some of the stories that you may have heard, Wonderful West Virginia magazine is printed in West Virginia by a West Virginia printer.
Right, absolutely.
Chapman Printing out of Charleston and Huntington and Parkersburg. All right, we have to take another break. When we come back, we'll talk about what we can expect in the future for Wonderful West Virginia magazine.
Here in West Virginia, we've tested all of our activities for maximum family fun. Everything has been tested and retested to make sure your West Virginia vacation will be the best your family has ever had. For your free state travel guide, dial 1-800-CALL-WVA and test out West Virginia for yourself.
Welcome back to Your DNR. I'm Hoy Murphy. With me today is Arnout Hyde Jr. and Steve Shaluta. We're talking about Wonderful West Virginia magazine. Arnout, when you came back here about 1.5 years ago, you built the magazine up again with a complete redesign. Why did you do that?
Well, we wanted to establish a look that whenever you saw the magazine on a newsstand, or anywhere for that matter, you would know that this magazine is Wonderful West Virginia. And although we didn't copy it exactly, but if you see a copy of National Geographic, when you see that yellow border, you'll instantly know that that's National Geographic. So we didn't want to keep switching designs. We wanted to establish one design, and this is what we came up with. We came up with the state colors, the blue and the gold, and which I think is a very distinctive logo, and hopefully we'll have that for many years. And so when you see that, you'll really see that this is Wonderful West Virginia. Then we went to a masthead and used photographs from the different stories. Also, we started using some what we call background screens. They're actual photographs that are washed back. And what I do, I spend a lot of time looking at other magazines. Magazines graphically designed, so to speak, are like clothing. It's a fashion thing, and they change over the years. When you look back 10 years ago, magazines look considerably different graphically, and I don't think many people realize that. But So I try to watch trends of other magazines, and this is one of the things that we've tried to do, looking at other magazines, and and then we have such wonderful flexibility, like a shot like this, and we using a gallery section, and this would have been difficult in the old days to design some of these ideas, but with computers, it's you have so much more flexibility.
Steve, do you go out in the field now with this redesign and technology in mind, the type of photographs you can shoot now?
Sure. I always have to keep it in mind to shoot editorially, whether I'm shooting for the tourism advertising or for the magazine. But if I'm shooting an assignment for the magazine, I definitely think for like cover shots, I have to think leaving room for the or the title and any copy that may be on the front, or a double page spread or a vertical. So I always have to keep that in mind as I shoot.
Okay, Arnout, we just got a couple of minutes here left. What can we expect to see in the future for the magazine? You're planning some changes.
Well, we have an option, since we have a corporate sponsor. We have some more money, and for the first time in years, the magazine is now making money, which is a real plus. It's not tax supported, so to speak. So with that, we're able to add 8 extra pages 4 times a year, and hopefully in the future years we can go to 40 pages. And while we just have a few minutes, I would like to make a comment. Hoy, it's certainly been delightful working with you, because it's a different working relationship. I used to be with DNR. Now I'm a contractor, so to speak, so I work with Harry Price and Hoy Murphy, and it's been a wonderful relationship working with you all, and I certainly...
Well, thank you. You're the premier magazine editor. We were glad that you came back to it, of course, and turned the magazine around, and we're gaining circulation. It's winning awards and looking really nice these days, and we appreciate the work that you do on it too, and we'd like that to continue for a while.
Well, I hope so. I hope so for many years.
Okay, so the magazine itself is available by subscription, $15 for 12 issues a year.
Right. And
you can
24 for out of country.
Okay, so you can get out of country subscriptions. They're available as gifts. Father's Day is coming up. Christmas gifts, anything. Call 1-800-CALL-WVA or call the DNR office in Charleston, 558-2764. And of course, the magazine's available. If you want to sample it, you can buy it at a newsstand. It's $2.50 a copy. If you subscribe, it's half price.
Right. And the nice thing is, you're reminding someone 12 times a year that you're giving them a gift, and it's sort of a repeating type of gift, so to speak. So.
Okay. All right, Arnout and Hyde, we're out of time. Steve Shaluta, thank you both for being here today. Remember, Wonderful West Virginia magazine, published by the West Virginia Division of Natural Resources. Thank you for watching. I'm Hoy Murphy for your DNR.